health. And we're certainly delighted to be able to provide excellent content for your programs during this trying time. We are really fortunate to have Chris Meckelberg, member of the 5-star PE team. He's been putting the guest lineup together each week, and he's just has done an outstanding job of lining up the guests, and it's been really quality people joining us each week. And tonight there's no exception. We have some outstanding people to share information with you about how they're coping with these times and a little bit about their program. Also, before we get started with Chris and the team, I'd like to share some news about Hot Tech Plus with you. We are introducing our new Hot Tech Plus sensor. We're really, really excited about this. I'll just show you a little brief, if you can see it here. There it is. Whoops. There it is right there. It's much smaller than the 2.0. We're calling this sensor Hot Tech Plus 4.0. It is much smaller, more comfortable for students to use. And the exciting part about it, it has 3 zones. So that 3 lights, blue, green, and red. So when the student is participating in their workouts, they'll not only be able to see information about the intensity of the workout on their phone or on the tile on the wall, but they'll be able to look down at their sensor, and they'll be able to see what color it is, and then it'll tell them how hard they're working. If it's blue, then they're below their zone. If it's green, they're in the zone. If it's red, they're working above the zone. So we're really excited about this. We feel like it's going to be a great addition to our lineup, and we can't wait to get it in the hands of our teachers so they can experience the sensor and give us hopefully some good feedback on it. So stay tuned. If you need any more information about the sensor, just reach out to Corey Mortensen, our Director of Operations, or myself, and we'll be glad to share the specs of the watch and tell you a little bit more about it. So with that, I'm going to get right into the show tonight. As I said, we have a great lineup, and I'm going to have Chris introduce the team and get started with the information that we know that you'll enjoy. Okay, Chris.
Great. Thanks, Rich, so much. And thanks, everyone who's going to be watching this in the upcoming days. Excited once again, and mostly excited for our co-host, Mr. Brian Hull, who is now the 2020 High School Shape America Teacher of the Year. Amazing accomplishment.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
That's awesome.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
And to help you celebrate tonight, we have a former 2017 Shape America Middle School Teacher of the Year, Mr. Hallberg. Thank you, Doug, for coming on this evening.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's great. We love getting together. We wish we could be in person, but this, I guess, will be the next best thing.
Yep.
And we have another guest host tonight. That's Mr. CPE, or Ross Chakrian from Maryland. He's been on before, and he's also the 2020 Mable Lee Shape America Award recipient.
Way to go, Ross.
Thank you, guys. Happy to be here.
So I'm the only one who hasn't won anything. Rich can take me down now, and you guys can have a good night. But we're super excited to have everybody here listening in. This is going to be both informative for you, maybe a little update on each of our states and our local districts on how we're coping with the current times and circumstances. And the fact that this is our 8th episode going on this, it's been unbelievable to think that it would be going this long. And I think we're talking a little bit off the air of that initial impact when you realize that you were not going back to school this year. And I know it hit me almost like a wave when I heard it for real for the first time. And I knew I was like kind of a little bit in shock for a little bit. So we'll get a little bit more into that. But first, let's just open up with Brian. How was your experience through this? How was the award ceremony being unconventional the other night? How did that go off? And your speech you gave after giving the award was fantastic. So great job on that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. First and foremost, I appreciate it, guys, for your support and kind remarks. I'm sure Doug can relate. It's something I never thought I would receive the honor with, and it's been very humbling and honoring, like I said. I do want to give a big shout out to Shape America with this pandemic going on. I thought they made it as special as possible for all of the Shape toy recipients, they did as well as the job as they could have given the circumstances. So that was awesome. I appreciate everything Michelle Carter and Stephanie did and the rest of their team did for being able to recognize the Shape District toy announcements. I honestly, going into that night, I was very proud of being a district toy. And when my name was called out, I really was shocked. I wasn't expecting it to be me. But I am really proud of what I've done up to this point in my career. And like everybody else, it's really nice at times when your hard work is recognized. And me in this position, I definitely want to give back to the profession, give back to my colleagues across the country, and try to help them out in any way that I can. And just because I'm a national toy doesn't mean my knowledge level is any better than others. I have plenty to learn myself, but on the contrary, like I mentioned, I do want to give back in any way that I can.
Well said.
Awesome. And as far as Doug, any advice for a young Brian going through this process after being a few years done with it?
Stay humble, which you already are, and I think that's fantastic. And keep learning. I think that's a huge part of it. No matter where you are, where you go, who you talk to, you have to keep learning yourself and then bringing those things back to your students. And as we were talking a little bit off air, I think that's the hard part for the Teachers of the Year, is keeping that balance of trying to give to the profession, but not letting your own students suffer too. And that's a tricky balance. And so I just encourage you to remember that and to learn and say, hey, this would be perfect for my kids, and then bring that back and use it with your kids.
Absolutely.
And say, hey, I learned this when I was away. And it's a way to keep that circle going and sharing and learning with everybody else.
Yeah, one thing, Matthew Bassett, me and him were chatting a little bit privately on Twitter, and he just mentioned to me, every teacher, let alone every toy, has their own path, their own story. So just to be able to share my story with others and hear other people's stories, I think will be strong enough in itself.
Yeah, that's good advice. That is, and I think taking the time to listen to other people's stories, that's pretty important too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody is currently going through different experiences, even at their respective schools and districts.
Right. Absolutely.
What would you say you gained the most, Doug, out of that whirlwind year of being Teacher of the Year? I'm sure it went quickly, and it'll be a little different for Brian in these circumstances, but maybe your major takeaway, maybe you said it already.
Well, I think me. My standard answer is going to be relationships, right? Like that, I thrive on that, and the friendships that I made, the connections that I made with people around the country. I'm still learning from those people all these years later, and hopefully I'm contributing to other people as well and trying to lift them up. It's just a pretty amazing experience. And if you take it in and try and grow in it, it'll stay with you for years and years to come. And I can tell you the toy community itself, whether you're a district or national, it's just an amazing group of people. You mentioned Michelle Carter and the people from Shape America. They're phenomenal. The toys themselves, though, like I can't tell you how many times I've texted or called or asked or emailed. Yeah, I still do that. Someone and said, "Hey, can you help me?" And the number, the volume, and the quality of the responses. People just want to help each other, and it's really an honor to still be connected with so many fantastic people. They make me better just by being able to call them friends.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because, of course, you're in it a lot deeper than I am. But even within the process of me and my other 4 district toys, I mean, the level of where we got to know each other, even virtually, was awesome. And whenever we had a question, just like you said, Doug, we all jumped on over it to help each other out. And I'm really looking forward to the camaraderie in the future.
Yeah, it is. It's a special bond. It really is.
And we don't want to forget our normal weekly host, your brother Brad. And unfortunately, He was runner-up in the middle school race for Teacher of the Year, so big congratulations to him. I know he's a great teacher as well, and we wish he was here today and also celebrating, but we'll see him again next week, hopefully.
Absolutely.
He's got a lot to be proud of, too.
Oh, absolutely. He got really close with his group, too. So he really enjoyed that experience.
Yeah, that's a great group of people.
He had a very competitive group, too.
Anytime you can get that kind of phys ed minds together in one location or one train of thought as far as Teachers of the Year go, what's produced is pretty remarkable usually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ross, what are you're 2020 Mable Lee Award winner. Tell everybody a little bit more about that award, what it stands for, and your contribution to it.
Yeah, so Mable Lee, it's an award that's given to professionals that are under the age of 35 that have made contributions to the field of physical education in a positive manner. So I was beyond honored to receive that award. I was nominated by our former Shape Maryland executive director, Sally Nazelrod.
Sally.
Yeah, and she put me in and kind of pushed me up to EDA for that, and then I guess it's kind of from there. You know, they have one representative from each district that gets that award. So I was beyond blessed and beyond honored to receive that. I try to do what I can to help other people, either in person or through Twitter or social media, whatever it may be, to help the profession move forward and help them with their students. So to have that recognition is awesome. But that's not really the reason why you do the things that you do.
Absolutely.
You do it because you have a passion for it, because it's what's best for students at the end of the day. And if you can help other teachers to help their students, then you're reaching outside the walls of your gym to influence the greater good of what we all want in the end, which is happy and healthy, children, and then moving up, obviously, adolescence and into adulthood. So that's kind of how I see it, and it was really a big honor for me, and I really appreciate it.
It's a very well-deserved honor too, Ross. When people hear you describe what the award stands for, I really think that you embody that. And as a friend, as a colleague, as someone who's benefited from our conversations and all of your work, you're everything that award describes. And it's just an honor to spend time with you, buddy. Proud of you. Very proud of you.
I appreciate that, and it's a reciprocal road there. Same thing back to you, bud. I mean, we get on things like this, and even in person, obviously, it's much better. But I love these kind of conversations when we have these like-minded people in a group to just talk shop and to kind of bounce ideas off each other and see what's happening, in different situations. And like I said, it's all for the greater good. So it's all eventually to benefit our students and students around the country. So I know you all are like me, are happy to do the work that we do. So yeah.
Yep. Less to teach PE.
Yes.
That's it. That's your mantra, man.
That is. Always has been.
It's 100% true.
Best job in the world, that's for sure. Now, Doug, why don't we talk a little bit about your current remote learning situation? What's the district requiring of PE? What do you envision it if it goes prolonged? Things of that.
Those are all challenging questions for me right now. The district requirement in our middle school, Monday and Wednesday are a couple of core subjects, and then they just say get an hour of physical activity at the end. And then Tuesday and Thursday are the other core subjects, and then they again recommend physical activity. And then Friday is the day that we're supposed to deliver all of our specials. So obviously that's the day that I put out all of my stuff. So I have a weekly announcement. I have a weekly assignment. I put a bunch of videos out there like a lot of other people. A lot of my stuff is kind of connecting with you. So I've been trying to do some things for my own health and well-being, and I'll take a video and it'll say to, the kids, hey, I'm out here. Here's why you hike. Look at this view behind me. Here's how you stay socially distant when you do these things. And I hope you're doing something like this too. And then I put together, for example, a whole hiking page. It's got 17 or 18 hikes in the area. And when the kids do things like that, you know, it's amazing. They send me an email. Hey, Mr. Hallberg, this is right where you were standing. And, you know, like stuff like that, I really, really love when we get to connect at that level. As far as the future goes, you know, I'm concerned about what next year is going to look like. You know, as we've all talked about, I don't think any of us know. In my mind, I want to be in person with my students, you know, trying to do my best to meet whatever social distancing requirements there are for all classes. Upstate New York, you know, we've got some beautiful weather in the fall. That's a time to be outside. So I'd like to try and do some things. I think, Chris, you and I had a conversation, kind of like maybe, I don't want to say orienteering because I don't envision them holding the compass, but like some map stuff, almost like geocaching, things like that, where I can have the groups small and separate and take advantage of all the space that we have on our property. So like, I look forward, once I know what the expectation is, I look forward to doing this and creating something new out of this difficult time. So let's see it as an opportunity to recreate something or to connect and try something and make something special out of it. So I'm hesitant because of the unknowns, but I'm excited about the possibilities, I think is the best way that I can say it. I mean, obviously I'd like things to go back to my full classes and all of that eventually, but I'm still trying to stay positive and look at how can I create something in this climate, in this situation.
Yeah.
Well, thinking about PE, and if we have to be socially distant and they do decrease the class sizes, that does give you a chance to connect on, you know, a more one-to-one level with those students, maybe have more of an educational content area impact with them, and definitely give them more feedback all the time. So maybe in a way, if we can get back to that point, it may be beneficial for phys ed in some ways that we haven't seen in the past because of class size. But I think the key is getting back to that at least semblance of normalcy, which
Right.
what we're hearing around is few and far between these days.
Yeah.
Ross, how about yourself? I know you've been creating a lot of content. Anything new in the Maryland area?
You know, we were talking a little bit earlier off the air about, you know, the situation. Maryland just, well, not the whole state, but the majority of our counties, by the order of the governor, had their stay-at-home order lifted. Or it's about to lift, I should say, by tomorrow's Friday, right? Yeah, tomorrow, 5 p.m. It's about to be lifted in the majority of our counties around the state. So my fear with that is that people are just going to kind of go too crazy too quick. And, you know, we're going to be back at square one pretty soon. You know, with that comes retail stores are opening at a fraction of the capacity that they were able to hold before. You know, they're kind of monitoring, you know, numbers in and numbers out. I don't want to say the wrong percentage, but it's either 25 or 50, somewhere in that range % of, you know, the capacity. Restaurants are still not open in terms of dine-in service. So that's still continuing in terms of just takeout only or delivery. And there's a couple other things that are happening. I think state parks are starting to open up again, which is nice.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of stuff. So giving people more of an opportunity to kind of get back out and be able to, you know, stay socially distant outside in those spaces, you know, that are great places to get physical activity and for just, you know, well-being in general, just to get out there and enjoy nature in different ways, I think will be a huge uplift to a lot of people. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't be concerned about, you know, the situation. I know neighboring Delaware just announced that they're reopening their beaches.
Wow.
So, you know, that's to me a concern because I know how popular it gets out there in the summertime. I don't think we have done that just yet. But the mayor of Ocean City, apparently, which is our big resort town here in Maryland on the shore, said that hotels, motels, are now reopening for anyone that wants to use them. So, another concern I have with that is Ocean City. It's a pretty sleepy town in the off season, and they don't have anywhere near the facilities needed if an outbreak were to occur there. So to me, that's a big risk. I don't necessarily agree with it, but all of this is kind of the balancing act of, all right, how can we do this at an acceptable pace, not only in terms of being medically safe and with all of that, but also with the economy piece to it. And I think that's what everyone's trying to balance. And I don't know what the perfect answer is, and I don't know if anyone does. But my fear is that I think the powers that be in the political world are going to kind of tend to, I think, go more the route of the economy and care less about the people. That's my big concern about it. And I, it's just something that kind of has been running through my brain. And I don't know how you kind of put profits ahead of human life, but it's a balancing act. And I think overall our governor's done a pretty good job, and he is a Republican. But it's he's getting a lot of pressure because people are getting cooped up. They're tired of being cooped up.
Yeah.
The nice weather coming, that only, I think, exacerbates that feeling. People want to get out and they want to get back to normal, and I get that. But you gotta do it safely. And you gotta kind of be smart about it. So don't just think that, oh, this order being lifted, now everything's back to normal. Don't forget about social distancing. Don't forget about wearing masks, and particularly indoors in crowded places.
Right.
When you're in close proximity, that stuff still matters. So that's kind of my plea to the public here in Maryland at the moment. But yeah, as far as what next year is going to look like, who knows? I don't think anyone really knows at all. Our state superintendent has kind of given some different guidelines that goes along with our state's phase reopening plan. So tomorrow at 5 p.m., we're entering phase 1 with some of those restrictions being lifted. Phase 2 is when schools, whenever that happens, and that's supposed to happen after a steady decline in the cases, is when schools can kind of go back to some kind of modified version of face-to-face instruction. And we've been kind of given a report that kind of has a lot of different options for our state. I think there's options for like one day a week for the kids to be face-to-face, and the rest is kind of e-learning. There's A week and B week options where the kids go in 2 separate groups. So half the student population comes for 4 days in a row on what they would consider an A week. And then the next week, that group is at home doing distance learning, while the B group comes in for in-person face-to-face learning, and then kind of just switches back and forth. I think they've also floated like A-Day, B-Day as well, so every other day. But most of those plans really kind of only have, at the most, half the student population in the building at any one time for when we hopefully can go back face-to-face at some point in the fall. And our phase 3 isn't supposed to be scheduled to go into effect when everything is back to normal until there's a vaccine. So who knows when that could be. So this could last for an inordinate amount of time. And I know, as we were just talking before, we're kind of all planners. We want to know what we can do and kind of get a jump start on things. And that makes it really tough to be in this kind of a situation, because we kind of feel helpless in the moment, and we can't plan ahead or maybe be as effective as we think we could be. I'm hoping, like I mentioned earlier when we were off the air, for at least a month for us to know what the situation is going to be for the fall. And I know, like a lot of you guys in New York, we go back Labor Day, like the first day after Labor Day. So if we can have that decision regarding schools by the beginning of August, I'll be okay with that. And, I think that'll give everyone enough time to kind of make the arrangements they need in terms of parents, looking out for childcare, which will be a crazy situation with all the different schedules. Obviously if they're working and all that, and how that's going to, affect them. And then for us as teachers as well, to kind of have an idea of what we can start to get a jump on for the year at hand. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I mean, we're close to the rest of this year indefinitely. We have about 4 more weeks until the end of our school year here in Maryland. So, it's just distance learning until then. But that's kind of our situation, and kind of a little bit looking forward into the future of fall.
I think New York Governor Cuomo said that schools were going to be last on the list of reopenings, which worries me even more than being in phase 2. So that makes me think that we might be in for an extended remote learning time. And then it goes right into what you said. Now, at this point in the year, everyone, to my knowledge, has already gone to either a pass-fail system or some sort of comment-style grading. And without proper planning time at all, you're thinking about working all summer then to have the proper curriculum in place for a September launch. And that's every teacher working cohesively together to get materials ready for a long-term plan of this, because you wouldn't launch schools digitally if it was going to be 2 or 3 weeks. You would assume it'd be at least 2 to 3 months. So, we might be behind the 8 ball again. And are we going to be expected to really produce grades for the students? Are we looking to, just get the feedback again? Right now, I think, our return rate on average is about 25 to 50% of anything you're sending out is getting looked at or returned, which of course during this hectic time is understandable. But then if it becomes the new norm, how is everyone going to deal with that? And how are people who have full-time jobs at home and also have young children, or have to then leave the house and still have young children? I mean, it seems to be an impossible feat to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think parents in all of this have done, a pretty remarkable job with the situation that they've been thrust into. But at the same time, they're not teachers. It's not the same as us being in the classroom together with our students to have them learn. At best, we're just trying to keep the boat above the water right now. I don't really know if there's any real gains being made by any of the students out there. I'm putting out some stuff that I think is good, and it's got some substance to it, and it's got good purpose to it. But it's nowhere near, I think, what I would expect my students to be able to do if we were in person together. So it's tough. I give parents all the credit in the world. Parents out there, if any of you are listening, you're doing an amazing job. We as teachers really appreciate it, and we feel for what you're going through. And we really love that all you're doing to help your child, be successful during this time. So thank you to parents out there.
Absolutely.
I think New York here too, we just came to the conclusion that some districts worked their spring break, which here is around Easter time, Easter and Passover. So some districts continued remote learning during that time, like I know New York City did. So the governor waived the 180-day requirement. So our district is closing 8 school days earlier than on the calendar, which would be June 16th, a Tuesday, for our local district here. But I'm sure that's going to be popping up all over the state and the country.
Yeah, we're June 17th, with the last day being a half-day staff day. So June 16th for the kids, June 17th for us. So same thing.
Man, you guys are out earlier than me. That's the first time ever.
It is. It'll be the last time ever, too.
I think so.
The 18th. We're right there, man.
Dude, I am so calling you and taunting you.
And we only got the 16th because we agreed as under our contract that we would work our scheduled Tuesday off after Memorial Day, which would then get us out Tuesday the 16th, or else we'd be right there with you on the 17th ourselves. But we're in a transition time. We have a brand new superintendent coming in from New Jersey, and all of this going on with a exiting superintendent after 33 or 35 years in the district running the head. So it's even more up in the air than ever for us. Of course, we would tend to think, him being new to a district, being conservative, he would go to whatever the CDC said or whatever recommendations were in place by the higher up authorities, with maybe less of the consideration of, I want to do it my way. So we definitely are on some eggshells here in my district with the transition time for that. But with that end of the year being pushed up, of course, that pushed up all the needs of the district. Now we need to graduate students. We need to do something for them. We need to move them up from 8th grade, walk them up from 5th grade, all those shenanigans that go on each year. Yeah. And that just makes it even more difficult to try and even plan a semblance of normalcy for the remainder of the year. So we're being told deliver content and continue what you're doing, but at the same token, the year is basically done and everyone's telling us it's wrapping up earlier and earlier. So we're getting those two conflicting reports right now, just at a district level from teachers. So never mind what the parents must be going through, and then the kids subsequently who are missing out on all of their events. And
my son's 18, he's a senior, and it's mind-blowing to me the things that he's missing out on.
Yeah.
And he's handling it well, he's taking it in stride, but it's difficult as a parent to know that he's missing out on all of those things. I don't really think, some people downplay it, but living in a house that's going through it, it is a big deal. We're still blessed. Everyone's still healthy. I have it in perspective, but I feel for what the experience is that he's not going to have.
Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Perception, right? His perception is his reality. And I think a lot of the seniors, they may not be thinking so much about the things that adults are thinking. They're thinking about the here and now. Oh, I'm missing prom. I'm missing seeing all my friends. This is not how this is supposed to go. And that's their whole world. At secondary in particular, that's that social piece. I mean, it's important everywhere. But I mean, especially in the secondary school, that's everything to them. So, I feel for those seniors too, man.
Yep, it's crushing. It's really sad.
I know, I think the NCAA came out the other day too and said that if there's no fall classes on the campus, there wouldn't be any fall sports for any of the universities or colleges out there. And I know a lot of them already made that decision that it's going to be an online fall. So I would assume that same kind of decision would trickle down to the public school sector, and we might be missing out on a whole nother sports season as well, coming off of this last one. I mean, just devastating for any seniors that were getting ready to play their last seasons. And I'm sure we all remember our seasons well and the fond memories that brings. So, devastating for students like that in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a couple other things that we had for tonight, not too much formal discussion, but when we think about Doug right now, what are you thinking? Some of your big takeaways. Just talk a little bit about. I know you had a recent podcast with George Rodriguez. I read the blog. I listened to it. I have to admit, I did doze off at the tail end of it because it was very late, but I did get the tail end of it the next morning, and I enjoyed it all. It was to no effect of your own of my doze.
Thanks for keeping me humble. You were great. I fell asleep.
I'm just a soothing voice, and at 11:30, I tell you what, it is what it is. But tell a little bit more about that experience. I know everyone loved it, had great feedback.
Well, it was really an amazing experience. If you ever get the opportunity, any of you, I would absolutely say yes to Jorge. He does an absolutely amazing job of listening, and then asking questions based on what was asked or said. He does not, like, I kind of anticipated, here's a list of questions and we're going to jump through these questions. And it wasn't that at all. It was exactly what we're doing, or what we would do around the table at Shape, at the Shape conference or in the hotel room or whatever. And we just talked about what was important to us. Mine, I really touched a lot on relationships and with your students and with each other. And then it kind of morphed into many different directions. Talked about my program a little bit and some of the things that I do to try and connect with my kids. And but it was one of those hours that at the end of the hour, I felt like we could have talked for another 2 or 3. And again, I feel that way when we all get together. So it was very similar to that. And when you put passionate people together and give them a chance to talk about what they care about, it's kind of a cool situation. And there was no agenda. There was no, we have to do this, we have to talk about this. And it really, it made it a very enjoyable experience for me. And my only hope is, same thing I hope for almost everything, is that somebody somewhere got something out of it, because I've gotten so much out of listening to Jorge's podcast from other people. It's helped me personally, it's helped me professionally. And so for me, it was just another opportunity to give back to the people in the profession that have done more for me than I can ever do for them. So it was an amazing experience.
It's awesome.
Yep. I mean, I listened to it. I know I texted you after I listened to it, Doug, but, you came across as genuine as ever in it. And anyone who knows Doug, knows that what he's saying in here is exactly who he is. And, he's an amazing person, amazing human, an amazing teacher. And there's so many good little nuggets in there in terms of little pieces about, just the importance of relationships and connectedness and all of that. And it's just a great listen. So I couldn't recommend that enough. And like you said, Jorge does a great job. The fact, what you said about him being a really good listener is 100%, I think, a great way to describe how he kind of conducts his interviews with people. From what I know, I don't think he prepares any real questions ahead of time. I think it's just kind of where the conversation goes. And kind of ebbs and flows, and based on what you're saying, he's kind of asking follow-ups based on that, and kind of, add a little, a bit of his 2 cents and his situation about what he might think about that, and the conversation kind of, goes from there, and it's just a really great kind of way that he conducts his podcast. So yeah, his Global Phys Ed Voxcast. If you're not familiar with it, give it a listen. He's had so many amazing people on there. Physical educators, but even beyond that, there's just a plethora of amazingness on that resource. So check it out if you're not familiar.
Yeah, if you get a chance, if you ever ask Brian, say yes. Say yes.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, did you pursue him to be on it, or did he pursue you to be on it?
He asked me. We had tried to connect once after I presented in New Jersey, and then he moved to Saudi Arabia, and that we kind of let it go for a while. And then he had put one out, and it really impacted me. And I just said thank you to him, and he said, "Well, thank you for listening. Would you want to be on the show?" And I said yes. So that's how it was, that simple. And then we picked the date, and then, there's a time difference. The difference for here in Saudi Arabia, I think, is 7 hours. So we had to figure out how to make that work. And it was great. So it was, something I highly recommend.
Good to know.
So
last topic of the night, let's say funding. And I know I say this to my wife all the time. If you needed to do your full job at home, that you would provide the best content to your students, what materials would you need, ideally provided by some sort of district? Because I know my district only provides us with a little iPad, and that isn't very sufficient on some of these application and web-based products that we're using, like Google Classrooms and Seesaw and other things that we have to deliver content through. So kind of thinking, if we are home here in September and you had a chance, what are some things that you would need to deliver the content to your students? And then what would you hope your students might have access to? And this brings to mind, because Gopher just started their at-home PE kits, which seems like a great idea. Subscription style, I know there's a lot of STEM subscriptions out there that are sold on the internet for students. And this is like a PE at-home STEM kit. Great idea thing. So if it was something that kids could be provided with, that would make our jobs a lot easier, because we know what they would have on the other end of that and what kind of content we really could provide, or activities. So what are some things that you would love to have in your home to provide that to your students, and what would you hope students would have? We'll start with Brian, Teacher of the Year.
God, that's a good question. I mean, I think we could all take that in so many directions, but I know we've talked about it a lot, Chris. I think a heart rate monitor for students would be great. Especially the students I serve, a lot of them don't get much physical activity due to what's going on in the neighborhood, or having to stay home and watch younger siblings, and they can't leave the house at all. So, I mean, if all students could at least have a heart rate monitor, and even if I ask them to get 5 to 10 minutes of MVPA, at least I know they can see if they're doing that, and it's objective enough to know they feel rewarded by it through each day, by me giving them some of the benefits they're getting, not just physically, but cognitively, because a lot of my students need a boost like the serotonin in their brains because of a lot of the stuff they're going through at home, and they're depressed and anxious about so many things. Another thing I could think of is if I'd be able to get each student like a TheraBand or an exercise band, I think I'd be able to take that in so many different avenues as well, through just showing them different gifts of like a shoulder press and a bicep curl and a calf raise. Just functional fitness, I think, is what I would really want to harp on. So heart rate monitors, exercise or TheraBands. I mean, even if I could get them one ball from any sport they could pick, a basketball, a soccer ball, literally if they were just in their backyard, even if it's in their dirt grass, just dribbling a ball, they're at least getting some skilled component of fitness in, whether it's coordination, reaction time, whatever. It's crazy the stuff I've taken for granted when I've been with my students. Of course, I'm intentional with what I do with my students, but now's the time where I really hope some students can kind of see the purpose of what they did in the gym for each given day.
Mm-hmm. Those are great.
Ross, what do you think? I know you use your TV screen. You have apps that you're using. Anything that you could suggest to people that have helped you to this point, or maybe a pay app? I don't know.
I've really kind of been thinking about the things that I put out there. And so far, I mean, the things that I put out to my students and the things that I've consequently shared on social media through Twitter and Facebook and those kind of platforms have been pretty much body only type things. So, we just got done with a 3-week balance unit for K1 and 2-3 kind of differentiated in different ways. Don't really need any equipment for that. Just need a little bit of an open space. We're getting ready to go into like more movement concept approach, where they're kind of exploring levels, pathways, traveling, relationships, going over, under, through, around, and that kind of stuff can be done with pretty much little equipment or no equipment. I mean, you can do any of those relationship words around whatever you might have in your house for the most part. I've been really kind of intentional about the kinds of things that I'm planning, because I don't want to put my students in a situation where they say, well, I can't do this because I don't have X, Y, and Z piece of equipment. And I've seen some other things out there that have gotten posted, and that's great, that they're doing this, teachers putting out this kind of awesome idea with, X piece of equipment, Y piece of equipment. And if their students have access to that, and obviously they know their students better than anyone, that's great. But I know that my students where I'm at right now likely don't have a whole lot at home. I think the most that I've asked them to use as far as equipment goes is a plastic grocery bag. So, I've been really kind of cognizant of that. And I think as teachers, kind of getting back to the basics, and fitness stuff is great, but I know for me and my students, they're not really thrilled on the idea of fitness and the idea of, okay, let's do this exercise, let's do that exercise. They're not super into that. From what I've known about them in the 10 weeks leading up to this, before this whole thing happened. And, I think it's important that I recognize that, yes, fitness is important, but I kind of have to be able to kind of hide it in other ways. So yeah, we're working on strength and muscular endurance through balancing and through other ways like that. Are we talking about those terms in particular? No, that's not really the focus, because I don't think that'll make a huge difference and a huge like light bulb go off in their brain to make them want to click on that if I kind of were to title it that. But balancing, they like doing that. They like kind of trying out different positions. I've gotten good feedback from that. And the great thing that I'm kind of doing with all this kind of a movement ed approach right now, where there's a lot of exploration, is that there's not really a right answer, and you just kind of need your body. So, I mean, like, the stuff that I've been putting out, combining levels and pathways and traveling, there's a billion different ways that you can travel at a low level, in a zigzag pathway to get from one place to another. And it's kind of just getting them to think divergently about that, and kind of asking them, okay, well, you did it one way. Can you think of a different way that you can do a low level and a zigzag pathway? How else can you travel in that kind of combination? What ways can you go over something in your house? A billion different ways, under something in your house. How can you go around something in your house a bunch of different ways? And that kind of lends itself more to like an introductory, like parkour gymnastics kind of feel to it. They don't know that, but they're responding well to it. So I mean, the equipment piece, I'm kind of holding off on using a whole lot of equipment for that reason of equity in my mind. Going back in the fall, if we were to go back, I pretty much I'm about to use the last, I think, $550 or so to buy a jump rope for as many jump ropes as I can, just to get ready for if we need to start making like individual PE kits for equipment. So I think that'll be a good piece of equipment that I can use in a lot of different ways, not just for jump rope, but for other things too.
That's a good point.
I think, I was kind of thinking about are scarves a good option? I think I can probably go to Walmart and like just take a whole bunch of plastic bags and just say, well, we don't need to buy scarves. I can just get those maybe donated from Walmart or something like that. And it's the same kind of idea. So I think you have to really be creative in terms of what you're going to be asking students either to use at home, or even if you're planning for, like I'm kind of thinking in the back of my brain for like individual PE kits for next year, things that you can use in a lot of different ways. And you get the most bang for your buck for, I think are the best option right now. I mean, that plastic grocery bag, I mean, you can kind of stretch it out and it can be used like a scarf. You can ball it up and it works like a ball for all intents and purposes. So there's two pieces of equipment right there and different ways that you can use. It's one of those things that you kind of have to be really cognizant of in terms of what you're planning to use. In terms of tech at home, my district, we have computers at school. I have a desktop computer in my office. Obviously, I'm not taking a desktop home. I have a laptop that was provided me in the gym by my district, but it's not the best. I'm a Mac person anyway, so I don't mind using my own Mac because I think things would just go a lot faster that way. I've done things, kind of lessons along with my TV where I've kind of hooked my iPad up to that to make like a bigger screen if my kids need to see what's on the screen and like a whole space at the same time. And that's kind of allowed me to do some different options for lessons that are pre-recorded for balancing in particular in different ways. So I mean, tech-wise, that's been great. Making your own GIFs and things like that. That's something I've done in the past. So I use IMG Play Pro, which is a great app to make GIFs. Something else that I've been playing around with a little bit is this website called unscreen.com. And essentially it's a way for you to kind of have a green screen without a green screen, where you can kind of eliminate the background of what's behind you without having to have a green screen. There's some limitations to it. Like right now, it's only like a 5-second video clip that you can have at the most to upload to that, where it'll eliminate the background and kind of just isolate you, whether you're still or moving around. It does a pretty good job of kind of identifying what you're doing and kind of putting out a clean image or video of you without that background anymore, which has been helpful for me. I kind of made some virtual tag games that I put on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, where I'm popping in, where the kids kind of have to dodge me when I pop up on the screen, that we're going to get ready to use a couple weeks from now. So that's been a cool little thing. The whole Bitmoji craze that I've seen on Twitter that's this week. I haven't dabbled in that yet, where you create your virtual classroom, and then kind of having you as a Bitmoji in different places around, where they can click on you and kind of take you to a specific activity. I haven't messed around with that at all yet, but it's been a big hit, I know, on this week on Twitter for sure.
Huge hit.
Yeah.
My wife just finished creating her virtual art room, and it really is unique what you can do. And she was able to then take the pictures of her actual classroom with the actual work on the walls and then embed it as the background. So it looks like you're actually sitting in her class looking out the window as you would. And then each thing is a different link, which is, really pretty neat. And that goes a little bit more to thinking about the future. You know, what is the best way to deliver our content in the most meaningful way? Google Classrooms is a little impersonal, informal, really like college-ish, upper secondary level, where you're just in there to do work and to communicate through text, but you lose that person-to-person contact. So if we have to continue this into the coming fall, you know, we really have to do something a little more personal, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you said, Chris. You know, it's just a little thing, you know, it's probably a lot. I haven't messed around with it, like I said, but I can imagine it's a little bit of work trying to put that together. You know, but it's one of those things, I think, that it might seem like a little thing, but to the kids, I think, you know, they'll really appreciate that. It'll give them some sense of and some familiarity, which I think is, you know, it's worth its weight in gold right now. So I'm probably going to mess around with that a little bit. I've been thinking about doing that maybe, and kind of opening Pandora's box with that for like field day the last week of our virtual learning experience, and kind of just doing some pictures from outside my school, kind of just having me in the field, and then maybe go further in depth with that. Maybe in the fall, if we are continuing distance learning, where I can kind of go a little bit more crazy with it, maybe in the gym, me in the gym, as opposed to what I'm planning on doing maybe for a virtual field day kind of thing. But that's kind of where I'm at with tech tools or equipment stuff for right now.
I like the idea of that virtual classroom too, because when the student goes into it, then they're self-driving themselves to where they want to go and what they want to interact with. So it might be what they're feeling that day or what they're interested in that maybe they wouldn't always get a chance to go to or interact with in your classroom at that time. So, you know, it is really pretty cool what people have been doing out there with that.
Yeah.
Doug, what about yourself? Any ideas? I mean, you're at the middle school level, so it can be that impersonalness, but you love those relationships. So how do we keep that?
And that's a struggle. And, you know, there's a couple of things that were said that I was thinking about. And one, I actually talked to my superintendent. We had a blood drive, and he came walking through. And so we kept our distance and had our conversation. And my school is doing an absolutely amazing job of distributing food to families in need. And I mean an amazing job, off the charts, just helping people. And so I said, if this continues, I want to have a phys ed supply drop. That's the same way. You come in, you grab food if you need food. If you need equipment for your home, here's the equipment, and we'll have it prepackaged. And I said, look, I understand that's a financial investment, and I think every school district in the entire country is going to be scrambling for money. I think this is going to be an incredibly challenging time. But for me, it's not just the physical, as we all know, and, you know, Brian touched on before, the emotional, the mental and emotional health that comes with movement. We can't underplay that right now. My colleague calls it adulting with middle school kids. Right now, my middle school kids are adulting. They have to act like adults because I can't make them move, right? Yeah. They have to choose to move. So my son, my little guy, is going to be 13 in a couple of weeks, and he has more phys ed equipment than you can imagine. I think you can figure out where that comes from. And he made, you know, this unbelievable obstacle course. And so I was watching my kid have an absolute blast. And I thought, wow, that's privilege, right? That not every kid can do that. We have space and we have the equipment for him to be able to do that. So I don't know that I can get every kid an obstacle course, but is there a way through the school to get every kid, you know, those take-home crates that became so popular? Like, can we do that for the kids that say they need it? And no questions asked, right? You mentioned that Gopher has that program. I know US Games has an amazing little, you know, low price. Look, this is the bare minimum equipment that we can. So if we could get that stuff purchased and then divvy it up, and do I think we can get to everybody? Probably not, right? But I think we need to focus on getting to somebody and trying to provide them the equipment that would enable them to do more than they are right now. I know for my family, we wouldn't go and pick that up, but I also know that there are a lot of families that need it. and would pick it up.
Mhm.
So I think we have to sometimes, and this is hard for me, you guys know me, it doesn't have to be perfect to be helpful, right? We got to be okay with making mistakes too. And if you're making a mistake with the intention of trying to help as many people as you can, okay,
Mhm.
I'm going to try that. So that's kind of where my heart is right now. If this were to continue, how could I make that something like that happen? And Ross, I think you're right. I think it's going to be, in my mind, it would be jump ropes, a ball of some type, like just, obviously heart rate monitors are amazing. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think I can realistically say that for the amount of students that I have, right?
Yeah.
Some of the stuff we take for granted, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, as phys ed teachers, we had access to equipment when we were young, and not everybody does. So what can we do as a profession? What can we do as a state? What can we do as a school, as a community, as a person to help people get some access to that? It's something I'm really curious about and passionate about.
Yeah. I mean, I think those take-home tubs. I mean, the first place that I saw that I know was Jason Leach on Twitter down in Texas, and I know it was extremely popular when he did it. In pre-COVID times, that's something that I brought up to my principal too. It's just not the right time right now, but I'm hoping in the fall, if we are continuing distance learning, my thoughts are on the same kind of wavelength as you, Doug, with that, a once a week kind of thing. Hey, you want to come up to school? Here's this times that Mr. C will be here. You can check out equipment. You can use it for, however much time, bring it back the next week, or even if you need longer than that. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. And there's a way to, do it safely if we are continuing distance learning, where we can disinfect it, in between going from one family to another. And I think that to me is a real option if we had to continue this.
I don't even want to take it back. To be honest, I want to say, like the food, this is yours.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to use what you have, or try to use what you have in some of my upcoming lessons. And, we're going to make it last as long as it can last. And something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So I understand there's probably going to be lots of, well, what about this and what about this? And I get that. It's not a perfect answer, but I just feel the need to act in some way to help those kids that are less fortunate than some others.
Yeah.
And I think theoretically through the CARES Act, there should be some funding trickling down to the states that with the intention to have some level of preparedness were this to happen again in education. So of course that is a huge emphasis on technology, but I think at this time we can argue as good as any time that the physical fitness and the physical movement on a daily basis of our students and children in our community needs to be kept up with in order for them to be the most beneficial to themselves. So, can we utilize this funding to get families in need, maybe some sort of list, maybe some sort of survey sent out to the families of what you may have, what you don't have, what you would love to have, given the opportunity, and something where we can give back in that way, or just donating, because I know a lot of people have a lot of extra stuff laying around. So, like your idea, Doug, with those donations or whatever you can get, but that's so local that it takes a true leader like yourselves to get that off the ground there and do that. Many districts are not going that far. So
maybe even leverage the businesses that are doing really well, like the Walmarts are doing really well right now still. So maybe you go in there, hey, I'm a local PE teacher, right around the corner here from your business, there's something that can you donate 300 tennis balls to me, and that's a drop in the bucket for them, but that can make a huge difference for you and your program. Because they're not, I don't think those big businesses, in terms of Walmart in particular, but I mean, there's others too, Amazon, it's hard to do that with them, but I mean, that's something that I think may be an option for you to explore. I think we need to kind of leave no stone unturned with that kind of stuff, and kind of explore all avenues, because I think times are going to be tough, and you kind of have to, be willing to do those kind of extra things right now, I think, to kind of give your students a better experience, maybe what they would have without, you kind of giving that effort.
Yeah, my school district, my teachers association, the phys ed department went to them, not me. People much smarter than me came up with this idea, and they created a GoFundMe page for just Rotterdam, which is the town that I live in, and people donated to that, and they took the money and they bought food from businesses in Rotterdam, and they brought that food to the frontline first responders in Rotterdam, and
Wow.
it was just Rotterdam businesses helping Rotterdam first responders. And if there was a local business that was owned by a parent, we went right there. And so we just tried to do everything we could to support the local people, and that's kind of what got me, even onto I think maybe we could do something like this. But focus it around getting equipment in the hands of kids that need it. So
Yeah.
very early, but it's just, that's where my heart and brain are right now.
Yeah.
And like we said, there is no right way. So we just got to keep trying. No stone left unturned. And actually, Rich has a pretty good document on the Heart Tech website, and maybe he could link that in through the chat. They have a pretty robust list of grants and different organizations for different states that you can go through. Maybe some of those larger companies are still hosting grants like that. Maybe they're still accepting things for a couple of $1,000s or so. I think New York State AFERD here in New York just put out that they have some local small grants that they're giving out to phys ed teachers. So maybe they are out there, and hopefully we can get, and then it's what exactly do you want to do with those funds, and why is it so important to do that I think it really comes down to. Rich is up on the screen, but we can't hear him. So as much as we love Rich, we can't hear him.
We lost Ross.
And we lost Mr. Ross.
Yeah.
But I think this is just about the time where we're getting ready to wrap up. So we hit all of our topics that we wanted to talk about tonight. Thanks so much, Doug and Ross, for coming on. And Brian,
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations again.
Congrats, Brian. Congrats, Ross. I'm so happy.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug.
Anybody else have any final thoughts to leave us with this evening before we say goodbye?
It was an honor to be with you. And Brian, if I can ever help, just reach out, man. I'd do anything in the world to help you.
Thanks so much. That means a lot. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I know all of us. Yeah, thank you. I know all of us are pretty easy to contact. All of our emails are out there. If anybody's interested in professional development hours, you can email Rich about that. For the hour we've been on tonight, he can give you a certificate of attendance that you listen to it. And once again, we'll be back next Thursday with some new guests coming on. And thanks for tuning in. And thanks again, Doug. Thanks again, Brian. Congratulations. Have a great night, guys.
Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Have a good night.